What is up, everybody? Thank you for clicking on the video. Today we are going to be talking about 6 wide receivers your dumb league mates and your dynasty startups are going to pass on. These are wide receivers that you should absolutely draft at their value. Some of them could be potential league winners for you. Before we get into the video, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So without further ado, here we go. The first wide receiver that your dumb league mates are going to pass on that you should absolutely draft is George Pickens. Everything the Steelers have done, every move they have made this offseason has been an endorsement of George Pickens. The first thing they did was trade away Kenny Pickett, who was underperforming, and they signed Russell Wilson, and they traded for Justin Fields. Essentially, the Steelers not only upgraded at quarterback, but they were able to sign and trade for 2 bites at the apple, and both of these bites at the apple are going to be better opportunities, better players than what Kenny Pickett was. Next, they traded Deontay Johnson to Carolina, thus making George Pickens the unquestioned #1 wide receiver in the offense. Then the NFL draft came, and perhaps the Steelers fans were thinking, well, maybe the Steelers would draft a wide receiver in round 1 or 2. This is a fantastic wide receiver draft after all. Wrong. They drafted 2 offensive linemen. They drafted Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier in round 1 and round 2, respectively. And it wasn't until round 3 where they finally added a wide receiver in Roman Wilson. But what's interesting about this selection is that Wilson has a completely different skill set than Pickens and projects to be more of a slot wide receiver in the offense. And the Steelers drafting Roman Wilson was no real threat to Pickens being the unquestioned alpha in this offense. In addition to Roman Wilson, the Steelers added Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins, who project to be the other outside receivers in 3 wide receiver sets. But again, no real threat to George Pickens being the #1 wideout and the #1 target, even with Pat Freiermuth and the running backs in this offense. And when Dynasty gamers break down this Steelers offseason, it all points back to one thing. George Pickens is about to have a breakout season. He's also just 23 years old, and he's currently ranked as the wide receiver 26, according to Keep Trade Cut, and he's the player number 66 overall in Keep Trade Cut's Dynasty Superflex rankings. This is way too low, and there's a real chance we are talking about Pickens among the league's top wide receivers this time next year. Many Dynasty gamers are going to be put off by the fact that Terry McLaurin is 28 years old and past the age apex, but the truth is McLaurin is entering potentially the best situation of his career. I mean, since 2019, when McLaurin entered the NFL, here's a list of the quarterbacks that he's played with. Ready for this? Case Keenum, Dwayne Haskins, Colt McCoy, Alex Smith, Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke, not Taylor Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Garrett Gilbert, Carson Wentz, and Sam Howell. Needless to say, Jaden Daniels is the most talented quarterback that McLaurin has ever played with, and it might not be close. Over the past 4 seasons, McLaurin has averaged 128 targets, 1,091 receiving yards, and 4.5 touchdowns per season. And what's always plagued McLaurin and his upside as the top wideout for the Commanders is the lack of touchdowns in comparison to his total number of targets and opportunity in the offense. And with Jaden Daniels now at quarterback, this has a good chance of correcting in the right direction. And just last season, McLaurin ranked number 21 amongst wide receivers in expected fantasy points per game. He scored 3.59 fewer fantasy points per game than he should have given the opportunity that he saw in the offense. This is likely due to the fact that McLaurin ranked number 76 amongst wide receivers in catchable target rate, which is absolutely abysmal. Also, there isn't much standing in the way of McLaurin being the lead target for a team that struggled defensively a year ago. And this matters because Washington ranked dead last in passing yards allowed per game and number 27 in rushing yards allowed per game. This team is not going to be good defensively yet again, as they haven't made significant improvements on that side of the ball. As a result, Washington is going to be in a lot of negative game script situations, potentially in a lot of shootouts, and this is going to be a great thing for fantasy football. It's especially going to be a good thing for the player who's the top wideout in the offense, who's currently ranked as the wide receiver 39 and the player number 100 in Keep Trade Cuts Dynasty Superflex rankings. So if your Dynasty team is in need of an affordable win now piece, McLaurin is your guy. Detroit made a big bet on the talent of Jameson Williams this offseason, They decided against drafting a wide receiver in a wide receiver rich draft class. The Lions also decided against trading for or bringing in a free agent wideout. Therefore, Jameson Williams is in line to be the wide receiver 2 in the third receiving option in an offense that ranked number 2 in pass attempts last season, number 9 in team pass attempts per game. Detroit also allowed the number 2 most passing yards per game last season, which, to be fair, they improved this by adding Terrion Arnold in the first round of the NFL draft. It is very likely that the Lions won't be the best pass defense yet again this season. And with the division getting better, Green Bay and Chicago and the Minnesota Vikings just drafted a quarterback as well, this could mean shootouts. And Williams will likely be a player who fits the cliche of better in best ball. But there is no doubt he has a ton of upside in an offense that is going to put up a ton of points this season yet again. Most fantasy gamers have turned their attention elsewhere, and this is reflected in his ranking of wide receiver 49, player number 127 according to Keep Trade Cuts Dynasty Superflex rankings. That would make him a 10th round pick in a 12-man league, and at that price, I'm willing to bet that Jameson Williams could potentially break out in 2024. I know people are probably going to be sick of me talking about Darnell Mooney, but Darnell Mooney has been at the top of my wish list ever since he signed with the Atlanta Falcons in the new Kirk Cousins-led offense. Sure, the Falcons added Rondale Moore, but Mooney projects to be the wide receiver 2 on a team that most likely looked to pass the ball early and often. New offensive coordinator Zach Robinson comes from the same coaching tree, Sean McVay, as Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell. Therefore, the transition for Kirk Cousins should be somewhat seamless, and we know this Falcons offense is built to throw the ball much in the same way the Vikings offense was. In each of the past 3 seasons with Minnesota, Cousins ranked number 4, number 3, and number 7 in team pass attempts per game, respectively. And sure, a dynasty gamer could go out and pay top dollar to draft Drake London, who's currently wide receiver 10 and player number 29, according to Keep Trade Cuts Dynasty Superflex rankings. Or the target could be Darnell Mooney, who's wide receiver 81 and player number 220, according to Keep Trade Cut. With all due respect, that's an outrageous ranking. While it's true Mooney has been less than stellar over the past 2 seasons, the Falcons decided to pay him in the offseason. 3 years, $36 million, with $26 million of that guaranteed. Teams tell you what they think of a player by how much they pay him and by how much they're willing to guarantee to him. And they decided against adding a significant pass catcher other than Rondale Moore, as we said earlier. If the rumors are to be believed, Kirk Cousins actively recruited Mooney to Atlanta. All signs point to Mooney being heavily involved in this offense and as the third option behind London and Kyle Pitts. One more reason why Mooney will likely be an effective player in this offense and good for Drake London as well is his ability to win deep down the field. Mooney is fast, and while he has barely seen 60 targets over the past 2 seasons, once upon a time, Mooney earned 140 targets back in 2021. Mooney won't see that many targets in this Atlanta offense, but he's a player who could absolutely earn 90 to 100 targets this season, playing on the outside and hauling in deep targets from a quarterback that loves to throw the ball deep down the field in Kirk Cousins. Dynasty gamers and fantasy football gamers alike have left Rashad Bateman for dead, but the Ravens seem committed to him. Outside of drafting Devontae Walker in round 4 of the NFL draft, the Ravens have done next to nothing to address the wide receiver position. Currently, Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman stand alone at the top of the depth chart, with options such as Nelson Aguilar, Tylan Wallace, and the aforementioned Walker seemingly fitted as depth pieces. Last season was certainly a disappointment for anybody who rostered Rashad Bateman, but he was coming off a serious Liz Frank injury the year before and battled through injuries in 2023 as well. The health of Bateman could have been the reason why the Ravens brought in Odell Beckham Jr. last year, and now Bateman figures to be entering the 2024 season completely healthy and with a significant role in the offense. And currently Bateman is priced as the wide receiver 80 and player number 211 overall. And at that price, Bateman is well worth taking a chance on. And if anything happens to Zay Flowers, who is an undersized receiver, Bateman becomes the wide receiver 1 just like that And he's also a great player to throw in trades. I mean, he's easy to acquire right now. And those rankings are courtesy of Keep Trade Cut. This is my favorite player to add at value, and I've saved him for the very end. And by all accounts, Jayden Reed had a fantastic rookie season with the Packers. He earned 94 targets, caught 64 of those targets for 793 yards, and caught 8 touchdowns. This was good for wide receiver 25 overall and wide receiver 26 in fantasy points per game. However, there seems to be a disconnect between what Reed was able to accomplish in year 1 and his current value in Dynasty. Currently, Reed is valued as the wide receiver 30 and player number 79 overall in Keep Trade Cut's Superflex Dynasty rankings. Reed is currently being valued at his floor level of production, and when examining this Green Bay Packers depth chart, it appears to be a very ambiguous situation. Christian Watson figures to be the lead wideout, assuming he can be healthy, but he has yet to prove that he can stay healthy and needs to be consistent. Then there's Romeo Doubs. Doubs was not nearly as productive as Reed last season for fantasy football. He ranked as the wide receiver 36 overall and the wide receiver 46 in fantasy points per game, despite seeing 2 more targets on the season. And then there's Dontavian Wicks, who has not yet emerged as a starting caliber player for the Packers, although Wicks is still a buy in Dynasty. I mean, the point is Reed may be the top target in this Packers offense that looks to throw the ball a lot. Jordan Love last year ranked number 5 in pass attempts and number 2 in red zone attempts. Love was also number 3 amongst quarterbacks in deep ball attempts, number 2 in air yards, and number 6 in money throws. The Packers as a team were middle of the pack in pass attempts per game and pace of play, but I would expect this to pick up in Love's second year as a pro in the NFL. At the end of the day, this is an offense to get pieces of, and it's crazy to think that the potential number 1 target in an ascending Green Bay offense is currently ranked outside the top 25 wide receivers in Dynasty. This is a great chance to not only get exposure to Jayden Reed, but to trade for Christian Watson if you think he can stay healthy, Romeo Doubs if you think he's the guy, or Dontavian Wicks. Hell, even Luke Musgrave, Green Bay's projected starting tight end, is ranked as the tight end 17 on Keep Trade Cut. It's time to go buy some Packers in Dynasty, some of these guys who we think can earn these targets in what's going to be a pass-happy offense. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay tapped in for more content. You can follow me on Twitter at Seth_DIEWOLD. And until next time, be good, everybody, and we will see you later.